Hi there, I'm Lisa Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. Tonight I am talking about what is the effect of studying these divine laws. We call it Christian science, we call it divine science, we call it Christ science. There are lots of names for it. There are actually lots of faith traditions all over the world, but there is really only one law of truth. There's only one law of God. And by whatever name you call it, or you're used to calling it, what is the effect of studying and practicing these laws? And I was reading a passage in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures where it talks about the effects of Christian science are not so much seen as felt. It is the still small voice of truth uttering itself. And we are either turning away from this utterance or we are listening to it and going up higher. And what I have found over the many years that I've been studying this science is the effect is that I become aware of truth. I become more tuned into the voice of truth. And truth is always present. God is all. So truth, God, is all and is ever present. So truth is always present and always available. But studying, understanding that helps us always be tuned into it and be aware that that's an option to turn to. What happens is the false sense of ego, the belief that we are separate from God and that we have a separate mind from the one divine infinite mind, that belief keeps us from tuning into the divine all of truth. So we think and I was thinking about, okay, so the fires in Australia, this incredible, horrible situation that is there. What is it that we can do on the other side of the planet to help this situation? We can pray, and prayer is effective. And what does that look like in this instance? Acknowledging that the truth is ever present. Acknowledging that there is one infinite mind, good God, and that every individual who is dealing with this problem is tuned into the one mind that knows all and knows the right thing to do. So we are either listening to that voice of truth and going up higher, or we are turning away from it and not benefiting from it. So our prayer can be in line with knowing that every individual who's dealing with this issue can hear the truth, can listen to it, and can become as a child, let the ego go, and be humble enough to hear the word of truth, the ideas that will bring the solution, the ideas that will help bring us closer to what is in line with what's true, help us go higher. So there's another part of the rest of this passage is willingness to become as a little child and to leave the old for the new renders thought receptive of the advanced idea. So in the case of people who are fighting the fires, willingness to be humble enough to hear the divine idea, to be divinely inspired rather than thinking from an egoic standpoint, a false sense of ego standpoint, that I know the answer and I'm going to solve it and I'm going to do this and this and this. If we recognize that the all-knowing mind knows all and understands more than we could ever, if we're plugged into that, we are aligning with that. If we are separating ourselves and egoically going off and thinking that we're going to solve this by ourselves, we might come up with a good idea, but it's certainly not going to be as high an idea as what's aligned with God and with truth. So that line of we are either turning away from the utterance of truth or we are listening to it and going up higher. So the effect of understanding these laws is to have available to us the truth that we know we can always tune into. So either we're turning away from it or we're tuning into it and we're going up higher. There was a situation that I was in about, a couple days ago. I have a very, how do I describe this? I'm going to be I'm being very vulnerable here, and I'm going to reveal something about myself that is kind of an issue that I deal with. So if I'm involved in something that has a lot of details, and this is not such a terrible thing, probably a lot of people sort of have the same approach. I tend to want to know the big picture first, and then I can plug all the details into it. And if I don't know the big picture, I get swarmed by the little details, and I get kind of, I don't know how to describe it, frustrated. My brain is going to explode. And this, obviously, I'm just speaking on human terms here. This is not the divine I'm speaking about. So I really need to know kind of how does this fit into the big picture, and then I can kind of put all the pieces together. I was dealing with a technical issue on a software that I was working with, and I was chatting with somebody on a helpline, and I was not getting it. I was feeling very frustrated with myself because I wasn't understanding what this person was trying to say, or they weren't understanding what I was asking or something. And it wasn't going forward very well. And I was starting to feel really and this wasn't very conscious until afterwards, but I was feeling really bad about myself. I was just feeling really tense and frustrated. Got off the chat with them, got on a phone call with a different company because these two softwares are supposed to be speaking to each other, and they weren't, and was able to but I was on hold for a long time. So what happened between the chat and all the frustration and talking to the person was me sitting in the car. My husband was driving. We were on a long road trip. I was sitting in the car, and I had my head in my hands, and I was fighting back like a full-on panic attack because tears were like welling up and about to stream down my face because I was feeling stupid. I was feeling worthless. I was feeling like all of this stuff was coming up. Like I was feeling like a little kid who didn't know something and was feeling a lot of shame. I guess it really was shame. And so in that moment, there is a point to the story. I'm sorry I'm dragging this out too long. In that moment, I stopped and I thought, wait a second. I practice these spiritual laws all the time. So here's a really good opportunity to put them into practice. So I had my head in my hands. I'm kind of, quietly starting to cry. And I thought, wait a second. This has nothing to do with who I am. I recognized in that moment that all the feelings and all of the emotion and all of the shame that I was feeling was based on the false belief that my knowing something about this technology had anything to do with my level of intelligence, my worth, my value as an individual. None of that was true. But I had to battle that belief in that moment. So thankfully, I was on hold when I called this company, and I was listening to the music in the background. And I had this opportunity to really battle with the belief that I hadn't recognized before, and in that moment had the space to recognize, hang on, there's a false belief underlying this, and I need to tackle that and get rid of that, and then I can go forward. So as soon as I recognized that there was a false belief that I was holding about myself, it separated me from the belief, and I was able to say, wait a second, I'm safe, I'm secure, I'm God's child, there's nothing wrong with me. I am the expression of the all-intelligent mind, so I am intelligent, as a reflection of God. So I was affirming what I knew to be true about myself, and I was disassociating myself from the false belief that was trying to be imposed on me based on habit, based on human, beliefs and just situations that I find myself in that sort of trigger something. None of that was true. So when I separated myself, I was able to breathe and say, wait a second, I'm fine. All of this belief about me is all based in this circumstance, and I don't need to take it on as who I am. I'm fine. There's a problem. We will work it out. It's not a big deal. And I separated me as a person from an individual from the issue. And sometimes that's called impersonalizing the error. So when you impersonalize the error, you're able to take it off of you, put it out there, separate the error from the individual is another way of talking about it. Separate the error from me, put it out in front of me and go, wait a second, let me look at this objectively. It's not who I am. It's a suggestion about me. So then I was open to the truth about me. And by the time the guy came on the phone, I was totally calm. I had my wits about me. I recognized that, oh, this is what the issue is. I really need to know what the big picture is so that I can put all these little details into place. So I said that to the guy on the phone as soon as he answered the phone. But my getting the issue off of me and looking at it objectively allowed me to see what is the actual issue here. It wasn't personal. It wasn't about me. It was just an issue of a way to deal with this problem, this technical problem. And we got it resolved very quickly, and I felt really good about it, and it was all fine. But had I continued to believe that I was part of the problem, I would have gone into that other conversation in the same place I was before. So going full circle back to what we started with, what was it? We are either the effects of this science are not so much seen as felt, right? It is the still small voice of truth uttering itself. And we are either turning away from this or we are listening to it and going up higher. So I had to turn away. I was tuning into the truth. I was turning away from the material sense of myself, the mortal sense of myself, that I had a mind separate from God, that I have this problem where I have to, figure things out in a certain way or I can't get it. All of these beliefs that aren't true about me, as soon as I separated that from me, I could see what the issue was. I could claim what was true about me. I could go forward and the solution was apparent and I could go up higher. So the truth about me, claiming the truth about me in that moment, allowed me to express that and go up higher and have my experience be part of a manifestation of a higher level understanding, expression of truth. I had to be humble enough in that moment to recognize that the problem, because the ego wants to get so wrapped up in a problem that it has something to deal with. The ego doesn't want to die, and the ego wants to kill us. So when we recognize that there's a problem and we separate it from ourselves, we don't give the ego, the false sense of ego, legs, arms, a brain, head, a voice. We take all the power out of it because it has no real power, right? Anyway, I try to explain this stuff so that it helps you see kind of a window into the process. And obviously this is just me. This is just my process, and this is not a formula at all. It's just an example, yet another example of dealing with stuff so that it may give you some insight in how you might catch things for yourself. I actually had one of our viewers sent a message and said that she's been practicing this stuff and she's been having great success. So I just so applaud, and I don't know if I should name names, so I won't, but you know who you are. And I just applaud anyone who's starting out practicing using the science or looking at some laws that you've known have always existed and you're sort of looking at them in different ways now, which is great, and being able to utilize them in our lives day in and day out. That's really what this is about, is every moment of every day being aware, being humble, knowing that we always have the choice as to which way we're looking and how we're thinking and which lens we're looking through. Are we looking through that human, mortal sense of who we are, looking through that lens and looking at all the problems and attaching everything to ourselves and giving the ego lots of fuel? Or are we putting on that spiritual lens and looking through the spiritual lens and recognizing that we are but the humble reflection of the one mind, the humble reflection and the identity and manifestation of God. And in that humble place, we can reflect the all-knowing mind, the all-loving love, truth, principle. Those 7 synonyms that we get from Mrs. Eddy are just so amazing. Principle, mind, soul, spirit, life, truth, and love. Those are the 7 synonyms of God, based in the Bible. And I use it all the time. All the time. And we are the manifestation of that. We are the reflection of those 7 synonyms. And there's an exercise that I do in one of the classes that I do, is writing those 7 synonyms. I know a lot of people did this in Sunday school when they were kids. Write the 7 synonyms across the top of a page and list qualities under the synonyms and start identifying who you are based on those qualities. It's a really good exercise. If you haven't done it and you did it as a child, or you haven't done it ever before, or haven't done it in a long time, I highly recommend doing that and doing it often. It's a great exercise to do in the morning, and start claiming all of those qualities for yourself as who you are in every moment. Anyway, is that all I wanted to talk about tonight? There was something else. So the fires, tuning into truth, not turning away from it, but listening to it and going up higher. I think that was it. If there's something else, I'll come on again later, or I'll do it tomorrow. So, love you guys.